morning, Roxy Soxy.
Good morning, Tam Tam.
Well, it is the afternoon. It's actually 6 o'clock here, and we need to change our intro to good afternoon, everyone. But I told you that we should be doing what on this call today?
Oh my God. Well, and I agreed wholeheartedly. We are drinking in this
Some
podcast.
wine. I know. I haven't drank wine for a while.
I mean, it's time, girl. It's time.
It's time. I don't know why we stopped. We stopped for about a year and a half.
Why did we stop? Who likes
I think it was because I stopped drinking for the pandemic.
But why were we? Okay, so we had to be quitters because you were a quitter. But
I was a quitter.
You are back on the wagon.
I was like, let's see the worst thing happen to everyone, including myself, and decide to not drink alcohol.
Bad choice.
I was like, it's a bad choice. But you know what's a good choice today? Okay. Do you see that good segue? So I have been really, and I think I've been telling you this, really looking at like all the stuff I've been putting in my body.
Including the wine?
Including the wine, which is actually natural, Roxy. It's so natural.
It's grapes.
It's so great. And I've actually been going through all my makeup and my skincare, and I've been like, you know what? It's time to cross over to natural skincare. Are you there yet, Roxy?
Well, does tequila count?
Tequila is not included in skincare. So I think.
You know what, though? I remember hearing stories of Cleopatra because she would wash herself in wine. She would bathe in wine and wash her hair in wine. So I kind of think it might be a thing.
It might be a thing. And maybe this next person can put tequila in their products or maybe not. Because she's the founder and owner of this incredible brand called Edible Beauty Australia. And it's a clean beauty brand that I started to use I think it was about 6 to 7 months ago, because I'm really trying to overhaul all my makeup and my beauty products, because I do personally believe that the things in your products seep into your body, and ultimately that does affect they become endocrine disruptors, which she'll explain to everyone what that is. And I do think it does affect us and our health down the line. So I'm very obsessed with learning about this, and I'm going to get you on the natural skincare. I don't know if Botox, although you haven't done Botox.
No,
Botox is natural, right?
I know. Well, you know what they say? They say that, and I haven't done them either. I've done the Botox or the fillers, but apparently fillers are hyaluronic acid.
It's just your skin, so it's fine. You can dose up on those.
I'll come in like a puffer fish next time.
You will.
You'll not be able to tell a thing.
You won't. But without further ado, we have Anna.
Yay!
And let me pronounce your second name. It's Mitsios. I can't pronounce Sios, right?
It's people say mitosis, but it's Mitsios.
Is it Greek?
It is a Greek surname. Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Once you get the hang of it, it rolls easily.
Yeah. Mine is Sir Sock, like sir, like hello, sir, and then the sock on your foot.
Mine is pretty boring. It's just Manning, like Peyton Manning.
I like that. I like Manning. Yeah. Hey. You've got a good name. So Anna, what's Australia like right now? Can you let us in on that a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. Well, we feel really lucky right now. And Taman, I always feel for you when I see that, you can't get out to playgrounds and things, but we're luckily not so affected by COVID. So we have the occasional lockdowns, which are for short periods, but we're sort of free to go out and about. And it's actually a beautiful day today. And I can see a sunny sky out there. And we've been going to the beach and doing all these things. We feel really, really lucky being out here. So we want you guys to all come.
It seems crazy that there's actually a real life happening outside of where we are, because I have a friend in Australia that said it feels like there is
normal,
no pandemic.
Right? Yeah.
It feels like there's no pandemic.
So the only thing that's really affecting us right now is that we can't do our trips to Europe or the US, and that's probably the big one. And otherwise, everything is pretty much back to normal. So we're going to movies on weekends and things, and masks are off in Sydney, which is great. So we feel really lucky, and I do feel for you over there, as I know it's not so easy, especially with your tough winter and your snowstorms and things. And I really do feel for you. So it's this virus seems to have divided the world a little bit, hasn't it? And it's divided us on an individual basis, but also on a global basis. And I just can't wait until things are a little bit back to normality for everyone.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's such a crazy thing, but I think because we've been sort of in this pandemic, we've really been able to kind of slow down a little bit and really take the time to, be at home and be with our families. And that also includes like our skincare, because I feel like now I can give myself like an at-home sort of facial, and I have the time to gua sha, and I have the time to like
To
try
what?
out new products. Gua sha? Is it called gua sha?
I love how you just
say
threw that
right?
in there. What the heck is gua sha?
Gua sha?
Yeah, that she's letting on, I think, Sam.
Right.
And it's so true, because I think what we've seen is like sales of skincare have really lifted. Unfortunately, spas and beauty treatments aren't so high on that. And even in Australia, that industry has been affected. But people really are looking after themselves. And that also includes things they're putting in their bodies. And as Tammin said, I think it's allowed us to reflect on that and given us time to like cook our own food or make our skincare products, even if, we're that way inclined. But really take that time to look after ourselves. And so there has been a great thing that has come out of it. I think that makeup sales are really down, actually. But I'm a huge believer in looking good, regardless of whether you're going out to see anyone or not. I mean, why not put your makeup on when you wake up in the morning and just do your skincare routine, do everything you're doing, and then you feel great. It's an immediate uplift. And I think that's what people are finding, is that it makes them feel good. They're doing something good for themselves and for their skin and bodies. So why not continue or even just start on that good habit, because it is all about habits, isn't it? I think what will happen is we'll develop these fantastic habits, and they'll just flow into when things go back to normality. Hopefully people continue doing all of that self-care.
So tell us a little bit about edible beauty and why you wanted to get into skincare in the first place. Because I know you're a naturopath. I know that's what something that you've been doing for a very long time. So why did you decide to go on this path?
Yeah, well, it's a really different career path, I guess. And I was incredibly happy working in a clinic environment as a naturopath. I was seeing people who had hormonal imbalances. So it was a fertility clinic, but all sorts of people were coming through. And I think you can probably think of someone that has something like PCOS or endometriosis or some sort of a hormonal imbalance, or even type 2 diabetes. People seem to have had one of these conditions or know of someone that has. Would you say that that's true?
Yes, yes.
It's quite different, but Asia doesn't seem to have these issues as much. But I think in the US, it's just as much as Australia. And so I was seeing these women, some of them quite young, and they were coming in and they were basically having estrogen imbalances, testosterone imbalances. They might be having trouble with having a baby, having really heavy periods, etc., or lots of PMS. And so one of the first things I would do is, in addition to changing their diet and also putting them on some strong herbs and awful sort of elixirs, which taste awful but really did the job with hormones, they would be told to change their beauty products. And that's everything from deodorant to skincare to body wash to makeup. And I'm the sort of person who wants to recommend brands to people. So I'd be like, oh, well, I really need to recommend something that these people can use, because I want to try it, I want to vouch for it, and I want to know that it works, so they don't feel like they're missing out on anything. And it was so strange, because at that time, it was 2013, and I was looking at options. I was looking at health food shops. That's where we seem to find our natural skincare products, looking at the back of the ingredient labels, and there wasn't much out there. There were things that just didn't look edible. And I sort of thought, oh, well, we do absorb 60% of what we put on our skin. So it's almost as important as what we're putting in our bodies. And I'll explain that in a minute. But why is it that there's nothing edible on the market? I thought, oh my goodness, like I actually have to make something. And so I was living in this like pokey apartment, and I started buying all these ingredients like coconut oil, cocoa butter, shea butter, and essential oils and rose water. And I started going over to my mum's place. She had one of those old school kitchen aid mixers. And I started mixing all of these ingredients together and making pots of whipped body butters and vitamin E oils, and giving them to my clients and to friends and family. Like, oh, wow, this is really good. And I thought, I need to take this a little step further. And so that's where I sort of went more into a commercial mode and actually started creating the products in a proper packaged form, and putting the correct preservatives in to make them shelf stable, and they are natural preservatives. And then, you know, all of a sudden we had this line that was edible. So all the ingredients literally sort of good enough and safe enough to put in your mouth. And that's the whole concept behind it, is that I think it is so confusing. And so I'm doing what you said, Tam, and I'm sort of changing thoughts now and sort of going on this other little tangent. For people, isn't it? I think ours kind of makes it a little bit clearer, is like, if it's good enough to eat, then it's good enough to put on your skin. And yeah, there's natural, there's organic standards, there's clean beauty now, there's green beauty, there's even blue beauty, which I don't know if you've heard about. It's really cool. And so we sort of take all of that confusion out, and we just sort of say, well, our ingredients list has that edible purity standard. And so that's how it's created. And then the sort of flip side to that is, like, edible beauty has a two sort of pronged approach. With skincare, is that what we're putting inside our bodies is just as important. So we have a range of ingestible products, and I'm drinking one of our teas now, and they're designed to address problems on the inside, which may be contributing to skincare issues. So that's the brand, I guess, how it came about in a bit of a nutshell. I hope that gives a little bit of background.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I like the edible sort of side to it, you know. But here's my thing with natural beauty, and you know, all the buzzwords, you know, it's natural, it's clean, which is great. I mean, you obviously don't want to put harmful things on your body or in your body. But here's my thing. I feel like in the past, when I've tried things that are like 100% organic, or like, you know, quote unquote, very clean, natural, the efficacy isn't there. Like, it's not as effective as something that might have not necessarily chemicals in it, but maybe it's not like 100% organic. So how do you kind of, how do you make sure that your products actually work?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. And it is a tricky thing with natural products, because you can go to that really purest level of natural, where you're literally only putting like seeds and oils on your skin. And that, that could work for some people. We love using Australian extracts in our products, and these Australian native extracts have actually been studied in Southern Cross University, which is a Queensland university just north of Australia. And they're doing all these amazing studies showing that these ingredients have these incredible antioxidant properties. So they're basically growing in wild areas of Australia, arid regions of Australia, and they're being forced to survive. So they develop this super strong antioxidant defense system. I call them antioxidants on hormones. And they then are able to transfer, those plants transfer those ingredients or those properties to our skin. And it's in the form of anti-aging ingredients, anti-aging properties, hydrating properties. And we noticed that using those ingredients makes a significant difference to the efficacy of our products. But I totally hear you. It's hard to know if the products are going to work. I do think what's happened is that we consumers really raise that bar with natural beauty now. They're demanding that things work, and you will find brands that actually can vouch for efficacy. So I think looking for ingredients that have any sort of clinical studies behind them, or looking at even studies that a lot of brands are investing in on their own products as well. So we've got a fantastic study done on our No. 3 serum, and we had over 80% of people saying that they've noticed a difference by using that product over a period of 4 weeks. And so 80% of people noticed improved hydration, visually reduced fine lines and things. And so I think if you delve a little bit deeper, so I think it does probably require a little bit of more research into what you're buying, and then you can find something that you're probably like 90% certain is going to work for your skin. And I think it is a little bit of trial and error sometimes as well. It is sort of looking out for brands that, you know, giving them a sample, you know, trying samples, or giving them a try, and trying to delve your way through that little maze of everything out there and what will work for you. But it's such a good question. I think that's probably people's biggest reservation when they're switching over to natural beauty products, because you don't want to use something that's not going to work for you, even if it is 100% pure.
It's interesting because, you know, I've tried a lot of different natural beauty brands, and some of the beauty brands are $500 to $600 for one product. And I say to myself, you can't charge $600 if it's not going to work. So I bought it. No, just kidding. So I was like, oh my God, I look so much younger. So I do think that natural beauty, like Anna's saying, is coming a long way, because people are demanding to have natural beauty, and they're also demanding for it to work. Because I do agree with you, Roxy. I have been down that road. And there's a lot of brands that don't work for me, especially when it comes to sunscreen or even concealers, because it's like that chalky thing that you can't really find that isn't a chemical. And then what my next question is, we've had a lot of different people in this field on the podcast, and everyone has different beliefs, right? I do believe it makes way more sense. Like we were talking to Alicia Vitti, who's a hormone therapist. I do believe that what you put on your skin or on your body does affect hormones and does affect mental health, or getting pregnant, all of that. Now, we've had people on this podcast too that have said that the amounts of chemicals or disruptors or endocrine disruptors that are in your products are not enough to actually really create havoc in your body. So what do you feel about that?
Well, that's a really good point. And this is really interesting. And I'm glad you raised this, because there's so many different schools of thought here. And when you look at, for instance, a shampoo product and it's got sulfates in it, and you'll look at the safety. So a safety data sheet is a sheet that comes with an ingredient that tells you how toxic it is in what capacity. And there's nowhere near enough sulfate in a bottle of shampoo to cause any level of toxicity. Does that make sense? So technically, that product's very safe. But my school of thought, and not necessarily the correct school of thought, but it is that these toxins can accumulate in our cells over time. And so there's this bioaccumulation factor, and they're not being released. And so over a period of time, which is something we don't really have a lot of studies on. We don't know what the effects of those toxins will be.
Because it's not good business, right? Just to interject, it's not good business to have studies on it, because think about all the products that would not be allowed if there was studies on this.
Done on that. That's spot on. And I think something I sort of mentioned is that we're using products from such a young age, and, young girls are getting into the nail polish, they're getting into lipstick. And, that's great. But over a period of time, you just think, they're going to keep on using those products until they're 70 or more. You don't stop, really. And so what's happened to those levels of toxins or chemicals in the skin over that period of time? And I think where the whole sort of fear-mongering came out of sulfates and parabens was that there was a paraben found in a cancerous breast cell. And I think that's when everyone sort of went, oh, gosh, parabens cause breast cancer. But again, you can't make that jump. And I think you need to sort of think about the long-term view. So I sort of take this back and sort of say, well, we're not 100% certain maybe, but we sort of know that they're not that great for us. And why don't we just take a balanced approach? And why don't we just become more conscious of what's in our products, and where we can just start actually making the switch, and then not get too caught up in the fact that we have this favorite body butter that's not natural. Body butter is probably not the right one.
Like shampoo I find really hard.
Yeah. And that we can't switch that, but we've made an effort to switch a lot of other things. So yeah, I'm of that view that we just need to be a little bit balanced, and I guess just be really conscious. And I think that's where many people are sort of struggling to make that leap to start to know what's in the products. We're doing that so fantastically with our food, but not so much with our skincare. So the hormone imbalance thing is a huge one, and there's so many debates going on about it out there. But I'm definitely of the school of thought that there is a long-term effect of using these products on our skin. Not so much using them on a one-off basis or a small amount, but over a period of time there would be.
So here's the thing too, because we hear it all the time in the States, and that is, clean beauty, natural beauty, 100% organic, like name your buzzword. Products can slap pretty much anything they want on a bottle of something and call it natural, or call it, organic, or what have you. So I don't know how it is in Australia, but like, how can we as consumers be for sure that we're actually getting something that is not harmful and that is clean and that'll be good for us? Like, what is the best way to kind of figure that out?
That's such a good question. And I think you're spot on. Like, natural doesn't mean that it's necessarily got a very safe ingredient list, and neither does organic, actually. And sometimes we fall for that sort of trap of organic ingredients. But then we look at the back, on the back, and there's a fragrance in there. That's a huge one, actually. And I'll talk a little bit about that. But I think the first step is really just to start to know the ingredients that you want to look out for. So I think, the very basic step is actually looking out for sulfates, parabens, and phthalates, which are a little bit harder, but they actually come under the title of fragrance. So if you need to become familiar with anything that ends in like a sulfate, like a sodium lauryl sulfate or something like that, SLS might be called, I would sort of steer clear of that. Parabens are often preservatives, so anything, often even things like phenoxyethanol, which is a preservative. So starting to get to know some of the preservatives in products which aren't so natural, because I think what we tend to find is that even the natural brands are using things that are not that natural. So parabens are a big preservative used, and you'll notice that in the ingredient list. So just flipping over the bottle as a start and looking at the parabens and looking at the sulfates, and then looking out for that fragrance perfume. If it's not natural, if it's synthetic, it can have up to 500 chemicals inside it, which is huge. And the company using that product doesn't have to disclose that because it's proprietary to that company. So phthalates are a huge source of infertility. In studies, they've shown that people with high levels of phthalates in their urine actually have higher levels of infertility. So I find that fragrance is a really tricky one. So I would start to look out for those ingredients, and anything you're not sure about. There's a fantastic site called the Environmental Working Group. It's EWG, and they have an app called the Think Dirty app. And you can find individual scores on ingredients, and you can get a sense for whether they're, toxic or not. And then I would qualify that further by saying, when you look at that site, look further and see what they're saying. Is it the allergen that could be potentially there? If it's an allergen, then you would want to just avoid that if you're sensitive. But if there's things like immunological studies done and toxic studies done on it, and they're all showing that it's a score of 5, or 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 or 10, I think it goes up to 10, then you'd want to avoid it. So red is really bad when you see that popping up on that side. So it is a little bit of work. It does sound like it's a little bit hard, but I would have to say that once you start doing it, you become an expert pretty quickly, and you will be able to distinguish what's good for you and what's not, and you'll be able to just avoid looking at even any marketing on the front of the packet. I've fallen for it so many times where I've been sold something, I'm like, oh, it looks like it's so green and natural, and I take it home. I'm like, how did I fall for that? I still do it with food sometimes, especially for my baby, where, you look at the list and you look at the branding, you think it's fine. You're like, oh my goodness, why didn't I look at the ingredients list? So I think it is a little bit of education and just a little bit of time to start to get familiar with those terms and what you should be avoiding.
So I noticed that I've been paying a lot of attention to my cycle.
Yes.
And
what are you in right now? What cycle?
I'm in the really effing perfect place. I have about 10 days of my cycle in the luteal phase, which is just after I drop my egg, just after I ovulate.
Same. Cameron, we're on the same cycle.
Which is not great. I mean, it's great for us. Like, we'll get on, but it's not great because it's always good to have someone like Elisa Vitti said it, who's not in the same cycle, because it forces each other to push each other, meaning like if you're in the follicular phase, you're more of a thinker, and if you're in the luteal, you're more like of a analyzer.
We're in the drinking right now.
Yeah, we're in the drinking phase. Anyway, so the luteal phase for me is great because my progesterone is high. When I read up on progesterone, they say that's when you get really sleepy. For me, progesterone makes me feel normal, which means that I do think that I have some kind of imbalance. So when my estrogen level jumps at about day 7, I've tracked this for a year now. Between day 7 and day 12, I'm horrific. I suffer from like panic attacks. I suffer anxiety. I'm quick to get aggressive. And then the minute I ovulate, I have this period of just feeling like myself. It's wonderful. So something's happening from day 7 to day 12, and that's when your estrogen level spikes. So I want to know about that buzzword, endocrine disruptors, and what that is and what they are, because I feel like that could help me in that period of day 7 to. And don't text me, Roxy, on day 7. So.
Oh my God, you'll be like,
I'll be giving you no exclamation marks and no hearts. Okay, if you notice that,
then I know. If there's no emojis,
I'm in my ovulation phase.
So you're probably the sort of, I guess, like high estrogen can affect people differently, and this is where I find it really interesting with women, because some women just thrive in that first year after their pregnancy, or during pregnancy, and other women are just terrible like during the pregnancy or after. It's just so different for everyone, and we all respond to hormones differently. But in terms of estrogen, the huge thing is, and you mentioned it, endocrine disruption relates a lot to xenoestrogens, and xeno is a prefix for sort of like a fake estrogen. And we find that there's a lot of like fake estrogens around, and I'm not sure if this even relates to you, Taman, but they are in our skincare. They are in the, the air that we breathe. They are in our plastic. Plastic is a huge one. And they can be in a lot of foods as well. So I find that the best way to start reduce. So firstly, before I tell you what to do. So what happens is with these xenoestrogens, they act like they are estrogen in your body. So they bind onto the receptor sites, and they can therefore lead to a spike in an imbalance of estrogen, I should say, relative to testosterone or progesterone. And then they can also create an estrogen excess, which is then, I guess, as an extreme form of estrogen excess, we would get things like insulin resistance, or type 2 diabetes, or even some of the hormonal cancers out there. So excess estrogen isn't really our friend. So what do we do to avoid it? Well, the first thing is like start to look at where you might be using a lot of plastic. Start to look at, and when you do use glass, such a huge believer in glass packaging, and it's not convenient at all. It's awful for traveling, but it keeps all of those BPAs out and other hormone disruptors in plastic out of the picture. And so plastic is found everywhere. And I think the big one is like things that we use to store our food in, things that we heat up our food with, and so on. So that's sort of like basic things. And then, of course, our skincare. So a lot of these things that we're talking about, these chemicals, I shouldn't say chemicals, the sulfates and parabens that we're using in our skincare, they can be xenoestrogens. So they can behave like estrogen. The phthalates are a big one. They can bind into our estrogen receptor sites and not allow our proper estrogen to work properly. The other thing you can actually do is you can start eating some foods that are naturally high in phytoestrogens. And phytoestrogens get a bit of a bad rap, but from a naturopath sort of standpoint, they're actually good because they actually work like estrogen in the body, but the good estrogen versus the bad estrogen. And they'll bind onto our estrogen receptor sites and not allow the bad ones to bind on, if that sort of makes any sort of sense. So I love things like edamame beans and any sort of fermented tofu, like tempeh is a great one. And like pure soybeans, like not so much your processed soy, because that's not great. But things like that, even sort of legumes and that, going back to sort of those foods which we seem to not have a lot of, but they are high in phytoestrogens. Even foods with a lot of antioxidants can be great for us in that respect as well. So I guess that's sort of like a basic step. And then taking the next step is like looking a little bit more further, and things like vitamins, like vitamin B6, folate. All of those can help with our detoxification processes, and even foods can help with basically binding and removing any excess sort of estrogen or hormones. So I find fiber is a great one, and if you've sort of read any articles that I've written around this, and I probably haven't mentioned it for a little while, but I am huge on flaxseed meal, or linseed meal is what you would call it, because that's got these things called lignans, which actually help to bind excess hormones and remove them from the body as well. So I sort of say pop like 3 tablespoons of this flaxseed meal into your porridge or your smoothie or whatever it is that you're having every day. It's a fantastic way of helping to balance hormones as well. So fiber and leafy greens and all of those sort of basic things, which just sort of sound so boring. And I just almost like, try to avoid talking about it too much because it almost sounds so basic, but it's so important, and we do forget. I was having this conversation yesterday over dinner. I was saying, like, how many veggies do you have every day? I don't know what your USDA
I eat
recommends.
so many.
Do you?
I do.
You must be pooping right and left.
I mean, I only poop once a day. But I definitely, it's pretty beautiful. And I'll probably have to take this out of the podcast. But it's just like, I'm very proud of my morning. And it's always at 8:00 too. It's like on the nose, 8:00. I mean, if I get 2 in, I'm like so proud of myself. But I eat a lot.
You haven't taken a picture and texted it to me.
Oh, I sent it. Don't worry, I send them to my mom. But you can be next. You can be next in line, Roxy, and then Anna will be the third. My husband has said that he will divorce me if he sees one more picture from me. But yes, no, I eat so many vegetables. I mean, my whole life is vegetables. I eat cauliflower rice for lunch with vegetables. That's just all vegetables, isn't it?
A lot of vegetables in there. I'm like the other way. I'm more like the leafy greens, which you need a whole lot more of. Like, you need a cup of leafy greens to make up one serve. And I do think I'm getting at least 5 just the leafy greens. So I'm really into the leafy greens. But yeah, I just think basic things like that is, are you getting your standard serve of 5? We say 5 veggies and 2 fruits, but it could be different for you. I think it's similar. I think it's 5.5 or something. Maybe it's more. But yeah, I think it's really important. And again, like the fiber in that will help as well. And then looking at your lifestyle, looking at the products you're using on your body and your skin is spot on. And also a big one is fragrances in I just don't stop talking about fragrances, as you'll notice, because it's just, they're everywhere. Not only what we're putting directly on our skin, but in all of our like cleaning products and a lot of things like our air freshener and things that we're using in the air. Try to avoid using that a lot.
So, since we already brought up poop,
I was like, how's your poop, Roxy? You did not give the skinny on your poop. Okay.
The skinny on my poop is
it's skinny.
Yeah, exactly. I get so bummed when it is too skinny. I'm like, I wanted to poop more,
I know. It needs everyone poops. Like, people are so probably mad at this part of the podcast, but everyone poops. The queen poops. You know what I mean?
And it does
everyone
not
poops. Angelina Jolie poops. Okay.
True. And we're not doing it ideally. But I have a good recommendation for that. Sweet potato and pumpkin are fantastic for that sort of fiber, which will
peas. I heard it was the peas, like potato, pumpkin, papaya, pea for poop, right? It makes poop.
And another tip, and I love these, is chia seeds. And if you have used chia seeds before, they're fantastic. If you just soak them overnight, like make an overnight porridge, because then you get like your oats and you can pop any other sort of superfoods in that, a bit of coconut yogurt or something like that. And those seeds, because they actually expand a lot. You've probably seen them when you've soaked them overnight. They're not so good when you just have them like that. But when they're soaked overnight, they provide that bulk which you need. One, to make you feel full, but also to help to bulk that stool. So I would I say stool.
Bulk that stool.
Everyone's like, and now we go back and look at like the podcast episode and we're like, oh, at 42 minutes in, everyone has dropped off.
And here's how.
What happened at 42 minutes?
What happened? Wait, so how many times should we be pooping from a naturopath's perspective?
Yeah.
How many times should we be pooping? Like, should we be pooping once a day or more than that? Or you tell us.
Yeah, I'm a pretty like lenient naturopath, and I would say once a day is really good.
You're a nice naturopath.
But you might find some people who would say it's more like 2. And it's almost sort of saying that we need to sort of be clearing out, a little bit more than what we're doing. I don't think that's crucial, to be honest. I think once a day, I would say that if you're not going once a day, that you would want to be doing some work on your digestive system. Definitely once a day.
Colonics? Are you a fan of Colonics?
Oh, I used to do them all the time. Yeah. No, I haven't, but I used to. And one of my first dates with my husband, I was like, hey, honey, we're like dating for 2 months. I was like, I want you to come to this new thing with me and try this out. And he was like, and then when they said the form, it says, what are the reason you're here? And you're supposed to say like, oh, because like I have low fiber. Or I don't like whatever the reason. He wrote Tammin.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah.
But like the first and only time I have ever gotten a colonic, I went and I was with a friend and they had a choice. They had a choice of two friends and they only had 2 plastic pipes and then 1 metal one. And me and the other, we all drew straws. I'm like, I'm gonna take the plastic one. And so I got the plastic one, but I got too freaked out on the table to release. So
you didn't even go?
Well, I pulled it out of my butt and I ran to the toilet because I was so freaked out about pooping. My God. I'm so freaked out.
That's right, because you don't like to poop and like you like really don't like the pooping thing. You've like locked that door like ironclad. You have like 4 padlocks on that door.
Yes,
I'm like, anyone can walk in. I really don't care if you're famous, not famous, part of my family. I mean, not part of my family. We could have a conversation and cook a meal.
Tierman, how have we not done a podcast with you on the toilet?
We probably have. I just haven't told you.
There we go.
Okay, I'm sorry, Anna. I'm so sorry. Colonics. But I want to ask one question. I want to ask. So sorry, we're asking Colonics. Yes. Let's talk about Colonics. Is it good for you or is it not good for you?
Yeah. That question. So I've got a very specific view on this, and I don't believe in the one. There's 2 methods. I don't know what the first method is called, but the first method actually pumps a lot of water into your colon, into the large colon, and it flushes out I would say a lot of everything, like including good bacteria. And so I don't find that method fantastic, but there's this awesome method. It's called the gravity method. And there's only one place here in Sydney that does it, but I think it's everywhere in the US, as it is with these things. And this actually gives the rectum kind of like that push to start that peristaltic movement, and you just release on your own. So it's not really the water that is actually flushing up through the colon. And it works really well because it's almost just reminding your body of what that peristaltic movement is. And you can almost feel like your colon starting to, crunch up and down a little bit. And it feels like you've had a workout at the end of it. But it's really good. And it doesn't disrupt too much of anything, really. So I don't think that they're harmful at all. Even the other methods, not harmful. I would just not rely on them. I guess you'd want your body to be doing it on its own. But definitely if you're needing that support, I would probably just say once a month or something would be the maximum you'd want to be doing it. Or if you're doing a cleanse over 6 weeks, then maybe doing it every week for that time and then giving it a rest. But they're definitely helpful, especially if you're having troubles in that department.
Because it's spiritual to some people, I mean, people.
My husband, it's spirit. Like I've never seen him on the toilet for 15 years. I don't even know if he goes.
He probably does.
There's like 3 doors that are locked. He's like, I gotta go, and I'm like, I'd like to get back in the house, please. You've locked me outside with the kids, and we're all in the snow, and it's so cold.
He probably poops in little boxes and ties it up with a bow and like drops them in the snow and buries them.
Probably, it's so cute. It's so cute. He's not gonna let me release his podcast. Okay, Anna, I wanted to talk because we talked about this on our live before, and this is fascinating to me because I always have felt like there is a mental health gut connection and skin connection. So gut, mental health, skin, and mood, all of it. And we were talking on my live, and we accidentally fell into this topic about talking about how your gut actually produces serotonin. And without your gut being in good shape, and so many of our guts aren't in good shape, is why a lot of us suffer from depression, anxiety, skin issues, mood issues, is because our guts are not in good shape.
That's so true. And there are so many studies now. Well, there were quite a few studies to start with, I guess, on that gut mood connection. And 80% of the serotonin is found in your gut, which you've just mentioned, Tammin. But there are so many studies now proving this. And there's studies showing that people who have, for instance, imbalanced gut flora tend to have more rosacea or tend to have more acne and things like this. And even psoriasis is a huge one linked to the gut. So, there is definitely this gut and skin connection and gut and brain connection, which no one can deny now. And I think this is a really good, such a helpful message to people who are having some of these issues with either mental health or with their skin to just start paying attention to what is going inside, because sometimes your serums and cleansers will help, but sometimes you actually need to go a little bit further and like look inside and see what's going on with your gut. And one of these terms in the naturopathic world that's kind of thrown around quite a lot is this leaky gut. Doesn't mean that you've got holes in your gut, literally, but it does mean that particles are going through from the gut into the blood and reaching either the brain or are just coming into the bloodstream themselves and acting to disrupt your immune system, causing an inflammatory response. A lot of the kids who have, this is sort of going off topic, but kids who have autism, they sort of say their brain's on fire. They often have a lot of issues going on with their gut. And so once you heal that gut lining, once you stop those particles from going through into the bloodstream and through the blood brain barrier, then you can help a lot of those symptoms. So what causes a leaky gut? I guess that's probably the first question, because well, there is a test that used to be done in clinics quite a lot, in naturopath clinics, and it used to test dysbiosis in the gut, which just means a gut imbalance, fermentation and things that are going on that shouldn't be. And almost everyone was coming up with some kind of a gut issue, obviously varying levels, but I think we all have a level of a disrupted gut because stress can throw it out. We can have foods that we're eating, especially sugar and processed foods, things which aren't being broken down properly. Also, just our lifestyle is like, if we are sort of, hardcore on drinking and things like that, just getting depleted really. And that gut can start to, gluten and dairy is a big one. So many things can actually affect that gut. And it's interesting because I'm such a believer that our lifestyle, like stress, is such a huge one. Because what stress does is it depletes all of our magnesium, all of our zinc, all of our vitamin C. That's used to produce cortisol. And what happens is our hydrochloric acid, which is the first step in our digestive process, needs these nutrients. So not so much the vitamin C, but definitely the zinc. Once that zinc is depleted because it's gone off to trying to make all of these adrenal hormones, we can't produce hydrochloric acid. And that's the first step in our digestive process. So people often say to me, they can't digest their protein. Like they feel like the protein's kind of just sitting in their gut. And often that is, they're not producing enough acid to break down that protein. What happens to that protein? It sits there. We eat our sugary milkshake or something, and then that ferments, and then that causes a lot of disruption. Eventually, you compile that over days and months and a period of time of stress and eating badly. And then these fermented bad bacteria start to almost like grow. I don't know how I should too graphic with this, but they sort of start to eat away at the gut wall, and that's when we get these leaks coming in. And that's why the dairy and the gluten proteins can start going into the bloodstream, causing this response in our immune system. Where it's like, oh my goodness, these are foreign particles, they shouldn't be in here. We get all of this skin redness, inflammation. We start feeling like our joints are swollen. And that's almost just like that immune response to something that's related to our gut. So I'm sort of simplifying it a little bit, but there are so many factors. So I think, what do you do about stress? It's a huge one, but obviously we have to live with stress. And so finding coping mechanisms and meditation and so on, but making sure you're getting all your nutrients. Are you getting like your zinc and your vitamin C? Are you having your antioxidants, your fruits, which have a lot of vitamin C in them, your berries and things like that? And is your immune system in check, and is your gut in check? Are you doing all of those things? The hormone thing relates to this as well. You're doing all the fiber, you're doing all the greens, etc. And that will all also help get that gut in place. So I'm sorry, Taryn, I have.
No, it's fascinating. Because I feel like you eat like sugar at nighttime, because we all do, like we're stressed, and then the kids go to bed, and even now I'm like snacking on chocolate chips, and my husband has such a sweet tooth and he has no desire to stop it, which is like, he doesn't drink or smoke or do drugs, so it's like, okay, just give him these chocolate chips. Like what else can he do? I do think like, we just consume so much sugar, and I feel it because I know that, and that the word is candida, which is like yeast. I just know that we're all probably suffering from all that candida, which has so many symptoms because of it. But the scary thing about candida and yeast and all that, what you're talking about, is when you really want to kill it off, and when you really want to stop eating those foods, you have such a strong die off, or at least I do, that it's almost being scared to stop sugar, because, and I believe that sugar is way more addictive than cocaine. But when you do stop that sugar, you get such a rebound effect. Like it's horrible. Like you almost feel like you're sick. You can get yeast infections. You get migraines, and it's all your body dying this yeast off. But it's like, you have to kind of do that to get better, right?
Yeah, you do. And I think with that also is when you're doing it, using things that are going to support you. Like, I think that that fiber is really important, because that can bind some of those things coming out and remove it. Charcoal is a great one just to use for a short period whilst you're going through that detox, and that can alleviate some of the symptoms. But you're spot on. It's almost like you have to push through it. And then it's funny because it doesn't take long, and the palate does adjust, and you start to really notice something super sweet once you stop having sweets. And I'm a type 1 diabetic, and I've not been eating anything too sugary for a long period of time. And occasionally when I will pick something up, I'm like, oh my God, it's really, really, it tastes really almost artificial. So I think your body does adjust, and it does get used to not eating those things. And you also start to find alternatives. And I think that's a big thing, is start to look for what you can eat. And that's a huge thing with any sort of type 1 or type 2 diabetics, or people going through this detox, is that write a list of all the awesome things that you can have, and focus on those, because they're the ones that will get you through this crazy time. And there are sugar alternatives too. One of my favorites is stevia, because you can use it as an alternative. Some people hate it, but I'm not such a I don't dislike it, and I use that a little bit if I want to sweeten something with something I'm baking. So you can definitely use alternatives. But yeah, sugar is almost as potent. I think it is more potent than cocaine.
Right.
That's what
it's hard. Yeah, it's hard to quit.
Yeah. Does sugar also contribute? Because I was talking to a dietitian a year or two ago, and she was saying, we get this really bad buildup of mold in our bodies, which I didn't realize. Like, we actually grow mold. Like, I know good bacteria, and that's great.
You look moldy.
I look a little moldy right now, right? It's all this pandemic.
I'm just looking at you. I'm going mold. Okay, yeah.
Mold. See, I'm having that mold glow. But yeah, so she was telling me about this, like, mold overgrowth that you can get in your bodies. And I believe she said to do the Candida diet for that purpose. But I didn't know if you had any other, ideas about how to rid your body of mold.
Yeah, well, I'm actually not exactly sure of what your person was talking about. There's a huge thing going on though with mold toxicity, and maybe that's what she meant.
Yeah, I think that's what she meant.
Yeah, breathing in the mold, and like you're in a place like in a home that's prone to mold or dampness, that you can get these crazy symptoms, like where you're bedridden, and people don't know what it is, and then they might sort of go down this route where they find out that it is, they're breathing in the mold, and I guess actually that would then be creating some possibly mold in the body. But yeah, it's almost exactly the same thing. But the biggest way to solve that quickly as well is to remove that mold. Yeah. Otherwise, that you don't get healed. There is some doctors that are specializing in this whole mold area of health, people affected by it, and I would definitely recommend you would contact them, because there's specific protocols for that, which I don't feel like I'm competent in explaining, but there's like prescription medication you would use to help with removing that mold, and things that you could definitely do. But definitely that diet would be helpful, because that would then also help to heal or remove that that toxin or that overgrowth in the body as well. So yeah, that's huge. And I would say anyone who's had that sort of chronic fatigue or something like that going on, they would want to maybe look at this as a source of that as well.
Well, we should ask one or two more questions about beauty, and then we'll do maybe a true or false. But there's a few questions I wanted to ask about natural skincare and about edible beauty. And so I feel like, okay, so can we talk about oils? Because I feel like oils break me out. And
dry oils are too, Tam?
They like just always, I don't know. Look, I don't know if it's because sometimes I'm so exhausted that I'm not cleaning my face properly. And so when I put the oils on my face, it's like my pores aren't clean enough. So they kind of go in and dirty the pores, and I get pimples, which is probably the case. I just get so exhausted that I don't wash my face as well as I should. Or if it's just that my face reacts to oils. But when it's more of, Edible Beauty has a anti-aging serum, and they have a collagen serum, which is great for anti-aging. And it's like that different texture that never breaks me out. But when I put oils on, like thick oils, like grapeseed oil or whatever it is, I definitely break out.
I would say with that, it's a little bit tricky with oils, and I wouldn't say that it's your skin doing something wrong, or that there's something wrong with your skin type, you're not cleaning enough, and that's why you don't respond well to the oils, because oils can definitely break you out. I mean, a big one, and I know you haven't said this, but a big one I find is people say, oh, coconut oil breaks me out, and that people have literally been putting coconut oil from the jar onto their face as a moisturizer. And I'm like, oh, put it all over your body. That's great. Like, use it on your body because it's a fantastic hydrator. But on your skin, it can actually clog pores because basically what it does, it just sits on the skin surface. So then what you're getting is you're trapping your pores. Your pores can't breathe. That bacteria is starting to build up, and then you're breaking out. So I totally get that. Like, some oils will just sit on the skin surface and they will actually break you out. And that's completely normal. But I would say that if you find the right oil for your skin, and an oil which has ingredients which are, they call them non-comedogenic, which means that they don't actually clog your pores, or it contains oils which are almost like carrier oils. And one of the beautiful oils we use is called camellia seed oil, and this is from a plant that the Japanese people absolutely love. They use this oil in its pure form on the skin, and they say it has these incredible anti-aging and antioxidant benefits. But the beauty of this oil, it all comes down to the structure of the oil, is that the oil has these, what they call them, long-chain fatty acids, which means that they can go deeply into the skin and they just don't sit on the skin surface. So those also go into the skin and then they actually hydrate. So they're not going to cause the breakouts, if that makes sense. So it all comes down to the structure of the oil. But if you feel like, you're not sure, if you sort of try and you can sort of Google this information. But if, you have something which has a blend of oils and then there's something like, and this is what we do with our formulas, we use the camellia seed in it, and then it helps to transport all of the oils in, then we find that people aren't getting those clogged pores. So again, every skin type is different. So try things out on your skin. But generally, oils, providing that they're non-comedogenic, shouldn't be doing that. But I would not advise on using your grapeseed oil straight from the, bottle, or your coconut oil on your face.
Or just olive oil. Yeah.
Olive oil. Yeah. Olive oil is fantastic on the body. Like, I actually just think, it's beautiful on the body, especially for things like redness.
I'll smell like
your favorite Italian restaurant.
Yeah, I'll smell like, or like my eggs with olive oil on them. I'm like, honey, come over here. I'm all lathered up and
ready to go.
I love the smell.
Like,
I'm very biased, but yeah.
I do like olive oil. I do. Just maybe not on my whole body, but no. So what is the product that you said had the special oil in it that's in your products?
So we use that in all of our products, actually, that are cream or oil based. So we have a cleansing milk which actually uses that in there, but we also have it in our snowflower illuminating face oil, and that's an oil that we say is great for dry skin types. And I don't have that one in front of me. We've also got the exotic cedar youth oil, which is more of a dry type of oil. And that has things like squalane in it.
I love squalane. Yeah.
I think it's fantastic. I love it. And that's also in our natural retinol product as well, which has the couchiol. It's got the squalane, and it's got the some other beautiful extracts in there for anti-aging. But yeah, so that's in our number 4 vanilla silk lotion, which is a lotion, our Cocoa Bliss Intensive Repair Cream, which is just like a night cream, and then in that snowflower oil that I had mentioned. So we do use those non-comedogenic oils, and I was just going to say on another point though, maybe look at your oils as well and look at whether there's any essential oils which might be breaking you out, because sometimes the natural brands will use those essential oils as well, which could cause breakouts. So lavender, tea tree, I feel like sometimes people will respond differently to things like geranium and various like frankincense oil and things like that, which can sometimes cause those breakouts. So that's something also to be conscious of. So it might not actually be the oil, but it could be the essential oil as well.
You know, I think we're always sort of like chasing to the fountain of youth a bit. You know, we really want that plumpness in our skin and that elasticity and that youthful glow. And I noticed like, you know, a lot of products are with collagen now, and like, especially products that you can actually ingest have collagen in them. And I was talking to a doctor friend of mine and I said, you know, does it really work? Like if you ingest this collagen? And she was saying, you know, from her sort of medical background perspective, she said that because you know, the collagen goes through your digestive system, that by the time it actually makes it through your system, it's just such a small amount at that point that it's not really right. That it's not really that that it's not really that effective. But I'm interested in knowing sort of your perspective on that. If the collagen, like the edible collagen works.
Yes. I love this question. I'm so pleased someone actually said that, because I talk to people about this all the time. And I've not heard anyone who's mentioned this or asked me a question on this. I always have to tell them, which is good. So all this marine and this bovine collagen. So firstly, I just say, well, start to think about where it's coming from on an animal. Like it's the hide of the animal, it's the fish scales. And then you're getting this white powder out of that. So imagine how highly processed and hydrolyzed that has become to get to your white powder that you're putting into your water or your smoothie. So one, it's been highly processed. And that is because one, it's come from this crazy, awful form, really. But secondly, because our gut doesn't absorb those particles very well. So it has to be broken down into such a tiny particle, which is what you're saying, to absorb. And then what they've done is, in studies, they've shown that a lot of people will get some benefit, but it tends to be where they're needing it most, which is like their joints mostly. So they are feeling like maybe some of their arthritic symptoms are getting a bit of relief, but often their skin isn't. So our vegan collagen, edible beauty collagen approach to things is that you give your body the building blocks to collagen. So that's your vitamin C, that's your protein, which can be from a vegan source, and all of the supporting things like your silica and your zinc and all of your antioxidants. And then your body's able to build that collagen, but it's also protecting the existing collagen from breaking down. So then you are getting the skin benefits because your body's been given what it needs to create all types of collagen naturally, and also you're absorbing that collagen a lot better because it isn't from this unknown sort of foreign source. But you're also getting the added benefit of the antioxidants, because the antioxidants are basically protecting that collagen that's existing in your body from breaking down, and we want to stop that depletion as much as we want to create new collagen as well. So that's my approach on collagen, and everyone has a different approach, as you sort of said. But I love our approach, and we have a collagen powder, which is really a huge seller with our vegan fan base and people who are more aware of these types of things. They don't have to be vegan; they can just be more about not using these products, I guess, which are in some way quite cruel and harmful to animals as well. So, I think that's, and I guess that they enjoy using it and they do get the same benefits or more from using it as well.
Okay, so I think we should do a true or false before we end up. I had a glass of wine. I feel like this went like in 2 seconds.
No, it literally was
so
like
fast.
I mean, how is
it's
this
like flying. It's like when you have a glass of wine, you fly. You're like, what do you mean we're in Houston? Like, how did we get here? What do we mean we're in Vegas? I didn't say we're going to Vegas.
We can still catch a flight tonight, girl.
A true story. I was having cocktails at the Wilshire Hotel when I was 25 years old with a girlfriend of mine. And after 2 cocktails, because they're so strong, I said, let's go to Vegas tonight. She's like, okay, we went to Vegas. That's what happens when you've got no kids.
Yeah, exactly. And you're in your 20s and you're drunk.
Yeah, I was like, okay, let's just go to Vegas. Do not have the apple martinis in the Wilshire Hotel because you will end up in Vegas. Okay, so
tabletops.
True or false? Okay, Roxy,
wait.
go.
Okay,
wait.
Before we do, all of our listeners, okay, you YouTube viewers out there, you go to your iTunes, your podcast apps, wherever you get our podcast, to go listen to Anna's True or False Mythbusters, because she will no doubt shed a lot of light on things you want to know, and you don't want to miss it.
You do not want to miss this. Nope. Well, thank you, Anna, so much. And we love you. And we love Edible Beauty. And we can't wait to see what you have next. And I know you guys have more products you're launching and some exciting stuff for next year. So we will follow along and tell everyone to jump on board. And when this comes out, I will let everyone know that there's a code for everyone to buy 20% off. And we'll make sure everyone has that code too.
Yes, hopefully our code is Women on Top.
Yes.
Make it nice and easy.
Women on Top of 20. Okay, guys. Well, thank you so much. And you can find us on Women on Top Official on Instagram.
And Women on Top Podcast on Facebook. And please don't forget to rate, subscribe, and comment wherever you get your podcasts.
And share.
Thanks, where can we find Anna?
Good question. EdibleBeautyAustralia.com. Also at Sephora.com. And if you do have any questions about products or what's right for your skin type, just email me, Anna at EdibleBeautyAustralia.com, and I'm very happy to answer anything that you might have any questions for me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your awesome work, ladies. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Awesome. And I am Tammin Sursock.
And I am Roxy Manning.
And we are Women on Top 5.
And cheers.
Cheers.